All right, shortly after the 18th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, we're getting word, and the White House is saying that Usama Bin Laden has also been taken out a few years after his father was killed. Usama Bin Laden wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and lead this new movement against the United States. Again, we're trying to get confirmation of this and the exact time all of this happened. Former Delta Force Commander Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin on these developments. General, I know we're hitting you with this, and it's a late-breaking development, but if true, and he's dead, we do know there are at least a dozen other sons out there. I don't know their plans or succession interests, but what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, I think that it's more of a psychological setback than an operational setback for al-Qaeda. And it's also a psychological victory for the United States. Remember that Hamza was not the leader of al-Qaeda. That's a man named Ayman al-Zawahiri,
right,
who is out of the Muslim Brotherhood, who was bin Laden's number 2, and he still runs al-Qaeda. So what Hamza's job was, is at least reportedly, was to be the go-between with al-Qaeda and all these other like-minded terror groups like Boko Haram, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, al-Qaeda in Iraq. So I think it's a setback, but this probably happened over a year ago, so it's not a lethal blow.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we don't know the timing of any of this. What we do know, and I've discovered a little bit through a lot of business folks I talked to, that Usama bin Laden was part, when he was alive, of one of the world's richest families, as you know, probably better than anyone, and that a lot of that money still percolates through the family tree, so to speak, including benefiting Usama bin Laden when he was alive and his brothers and others, so that it's a threat in that regard, that they do have the money to match their threatening dialogue. What do you make of that, and how much of a threat of this contingent of bin Laden kids who are not happy with the United States and the West in general?
Well, they were an industrial construction company, a huge industrial and construction company for all over the Middle East. So there were billions of dollars that were made by this organization that bin Laden's father established and ran. And there is still lots of money in their coffers out there. I don't know the extent, how wealthy they really are, but certainly having that kind of money was a factor in what bin Laden was doing before he was killed, and I think it's a factor today going forward that they do have a lot of money that they can put into their terrorist activities out of their own pockets.
You know, General, this was the week we saw John Bolton fired by the President of the United States. John Bolton said he resigned. I don't think the details are as important as what it could mean. Rand Paul, when I talked to him earlier this week, sir, was delighted. I want you to react to this. Rand Paul talking about Bolton leaving.
The threat of war around the world is greatly diminished with Bolton out of the White House. I think he had a naive point of view for the world that we should topple regimes everywhere and institute, democratic governments, and we would make the world perfect or remake the world in our image. And frankly, it just doesn't work that way.
All right, what he's saying is we're better off without this guy there. What do you think, General?
Well, I think it was inevitable, Neil. I would ask you, did you really think Bolton was going to last there more than a year? He lasted 17 months. I think that Rand Paul is expressing what he has been very consistent in. He is against war anywhere, to be very honest with you, because he's a libertarian. That said, I think that Bolton had some very good ideas. I think he was a guy that had his time there in the White House to influence the president. But I knew when he went into that job that he was not going to stay, because he has an irascible personality, and that bumped up against the same personality in Donald Trump. But I also think that they got at cross purposes on some key issues, North Korea being one of them.
General, thank you very, very much.